Hi there. We're back. Angela here, and we're here with Andrea Cagenti, and also Cynthia Turner is tuning in as well. And today is Self-Directed Learners Call number 11. It's also a pretty cool solar environment right now. We're going into a new moon. I think it's Beltane today, I heard from a friend. So it's like the height of spring. And before we hit record, we were just chatting about, hey, what are we going to talk about today? And what seemed to be coming up for both of us, or perhaps all of us, was life stuff. And as Andrea had pointed out just before I hit record, that is actually quite normal when it comes to these solar stuff. It's sort of like the synchronicity of it all is pointing to, hey, maybe it's time now to process, look at new cycles that are about to start and cycles that are about to end and such. So I do know that these calls are called self-directed learner calls, which typically has to do with children and education. But the awesome part of this environment that we're creating is that it also is spiritual in nature. So we'll see where this call takes us, but it seems like it might have to do with some adult life stuff too. So I guess I'll just begin by, I'll toss it to you, Andrea. I'll just ask you a question. So what's coming up for you? How are you feeling?
Yay, thank you. So I'm off video. I'm just gonna relocate to a place that I think I'll get better internet. So can you hear me though, okay?
I can hear you perfectly.
Yay, okay, I'm walking. Yeah, so I guess like just what you said, where you just started, like what is this call for and about and what is the group? So the group is Self-Directed Education on Facebook and it's growing and growing, which I'm very happy and grateful for. But it's funny because I did have a comment on a post that said, what does this topic have anything to do with self-directed education? And so maybe if we just do like a very core, just like a really core topic, like what is the group for? Why did we create it? And what should or shouldn't be discussed? So I know, back when we started the group, it was really just a place for unschooling parents and self-directed parents to come and share ideas, hash out topics, network, get to know more about the style of education. And really, I don't know that we've eliminated any topics. I think conscious parenting and peaceful parenting, which I've said many times, I'll say it again, I feel is really the foundation for this style of education. So the topic of parenting, I think is paradigm. Like it's a huge part of, coming to the realizations needed to say, hey, you know what, my child can be free. And, just the natural flow of the universe is enough of a curriculum that we don't actually need a curriculum. Yeah, so if you want to that's kind of what I'm thinking, like on the basic foundational level. And when you talk about conscious parenting, peaceful parenting, that can take a while. That took me a while to shift my mindset. And I know that's your specialty, Angela. So for me as admin of the group, co-admin, I think that talking about parenting and the real life issues that parents that are either considering self-directed education or are already using it, it seems even more important than the style of education itself is for the parent to have the right foundation.
Yeah, so that actually, I love what you just said because it actually sets the stage for this is an open space to have conversations. There are so many times when I'm on calls with people where I'm on a quote unquote conscious parenting call, but it bleeds into life. It bleeds into life outside of parenting. And that's normal because our parenting, how we bring ourselves to parenting is going to have everything to do with how we live life outside of parenting. Like it's all very interrelated. And I actually perhaps have an example to share that's very relevant for stuff that's coming up for me. And also what you just touched on, where how life is the curriculum. Like life is, if we're attuned to what's present in the moment, it's pretty apparent that this moment is whole, the child is whole, everything that we need is kind of right in front of us. And it doesn't seem like there's a need. In fact, it seems exhausting from that perspective to add too much that's out of fear. Like, hey, I think we need to be doing this, we need to be doing that, because I'm worried about not being enough. I'm worried about this moment not being enough. I'm worried about you're not learning enough, you're not doing enough, all of that stuff. And what I mean by being attuned to the moment is like being attuned to what is arising within the child. So that's their emotional world. That's their interests, their fears, their challenges, their desires to be social, their challenges in their social environment, and also the boundaries that they seem to be rubbing against. Learning how to work in a community and make it possible for everyone to live a free life, because a lot of times in the pursuit of our own freedom, we rub against other people's freedom. It's just natural. And that's a lot of the learning. So that right there, like those topics that I just stated, that is a curriculum in and of itself. It's just very intuitive. It arises naturally from the moment. We don't need to like preconceive something and like mass produce it and slap it on the child. We just actually need to be present. Also, this is a process that has stages. It's a process that has learning involved in it. As we, try on these modalities, we grow too. Like we become, you could say, better at it. But at first, there's no problem no matter what stage we're at. It's all good. It's just that, I don't know, like in my own experience, I found that at first it's very ideological, seems very magical and wonderful, and I'm just going to try these things out. And then you're met with challenges and you're not exactly sure how to grapple with those challenges. It doesn't necessarily mean that the ideology is wrong. It just means that there's more and deeper depth of learning available, and you're starting to learn, and I'm starting to learn the subtleties of this style of parenting or this style of living, this style of educating. So yeah, how that has to do with like a personal experience of mine, which I think is very relevant, so helpful when I hear personal experiences, is that like recently in my personal relationship, not with my child, but with my partner, we noticed that cycles were shifting for us in terms of, so we run businesses, and for a while, my business was like more than part-time. It was like very small. And I spent a lot of time with the kids. I had a baby and stuff like that. And his business was more bringing in the money, paying the bills. And I, prior to that, just as a little history, was a 10-year entrepreneur who ran my own business. I had a lot of conditioned energy into that style of personality. And when I decided to close my business, I still had a lot of that energy running and I had nowhere to put it. And I basically put it all on my husband. What was now like used to be my lane where I ran my business was now projected onto him. And for a while, that seemed like it was okay and it seemed like it was needed. But then all of a sudden, recently, things started to shift and it became sort of toxic. It became like, oh, now I'm like micromanaging. Now I'm like worrying. I'm like becoming the coach, like for the football team or something. Like when I, at this moment, just need to be the cheerleader and I need to like trust that he has a path and that he's going to figure it out and that I don't need to know all the details. And I'm just here to listen and encourage and celebrate, but also like just the emotional stuff. And that also bleeds into how we interact with our children. And I'm not saying that there's never a time to problem solve or like be involved on a business with a partner. I'm just talking personally in my life. It just felt very like useful. I could sense the energy shifting and I was gifted with this like, oh, you can just trust and you can take a step back and you can watch it unfold. And it's going to be this really fun thing rather than a stressful thing that it was turning into. And it also allows us to grow as individuals and our relationship to be more enjoyable is like all the good feels. but it really was a reflection into parenting as well. Like this thing of like, how much self-importance do we put on ourselves that is actually ego self-importance? Like, I'm not saying that the core of you is not important. Of course, we know like core worthiness from a spiritual perspective. It's more like, how much do I think that I need to be the one that figures it all out and knows every detail? And if I don't do that, things are going to fall apart. And that core belief, how does that bleed into our parenting? How does that bleed into our relationships? And is it really helping? Like, what's the result? So yeah, that's the end of my thought there.
You're touching on so much. So thank you for sharing your personal experience. I think it's, like you said, when you use an example, it's, it helps, right? So, it seems like the false or negative belief under that is that if, maybe, and don't want to put words into your mouth, but just from what I'm hearing is maybe it's like, if
You know what, from my end,
I don't do,
there we go. I hear you.
okay. Yeah, I'm just thinking like if you don't do it, it might not get done right, or you need to, even if you have more experience in things, sometimes it's hard to let go of the reins. Like, maybe where you've had so much business experience, you're like, oh, you could be doing this or this or that. And I think underneath it is kind of like trusting the flow, trusting the universe, trusting our people, rather than control. So maybe, from a controlling to maybe, I just posted something, moving from controlling situations into communication and more of like a flow, like allowing a flow rather than the controlling point of view.
Totally. Like, absolutely. And right beneath that control is fear. It really is not coming from, like, it doesn't even feel good when it's happening. That's what I was noticing. It was turning into this like sort of cynical or critical energy that, yeah, is coming with potential solutions to a problem and trying to problem solve with you, but the root of it is not based in awareness. It's based in my own like fears of being negatively affected by something that my partner could do, like thinking that, if he doesn't succeed or if he doesn't do well, that my life is going to be negatively affected, and I just got to look at that belief and I'm like, just like, you know what, that's at this core not true for me. While on a 3D level, you may think, okay, if this business doesn't do well, it is going to be harder for our family. But I just don't want to live from that place. I'm like, I actually trust the way that life's going to unfold. And I'm going to show that I trust that by letting go of this sort of like unhealthy way of interacting and just like allowing you to take the reins. And it felt so relieving. It was like, whoo, that's not my role anymore. Yay.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's so nice when you can, be conscious enough to sense the tension, sense something's uncomfortable, and then to look within yourself, right? It's so easy to say, like, if you were running your business properly, like, you wouldn't make me mad like this, or, something like that, that would like project it or whatever,
Right.
but instead you say, okay, this is now an opportunity for me to do some processing and see. So what is the fear underneath it for you? Do you feel like you've gotten to it?
Yeah, I think it's a very, like, to sum it up, like a very basic fear of like, hey, if you don't perform, my life is going to be negatively affected. It's like perceiving him as a threat almost, or his decisions as a threat, his process as a threat in any way, whether it's the bank account or, all the things. And I feel like it gets brought up, that core perspective gets brought up really strongly when you have a family, because you have a lot of people that seem like they're your responsibility and on your shoulders. So if we have a subtle belief that, like a mistrust in how things are going to work out, it's going to be brought up to a larger degree. And in my perspective, that's a gift. That's like, okay, so the level that it's brought up, the level that the negative emotion is brought up to, is offering you that big of a gift if you choose to let it go. It's like a deeper degree of integration if you choose to integrate it in that way. I feel like that might be relevant for parents on the call, because it's probably a very common fear to feel the weight and the pressure of having a family and running a business. And yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean that you stop running a business or you're like, oh, it's all good, I'm not going to do anything. It's just the mind. It's where's the mind as you're going through all the actions and the motions? Is your mind on fear and worry and stress? Is it, or even if it is on fear and worry and stress, actually, how are those fears being integrated? How are they being worked with? Are they being played out and just believed? Or are we looking at it as opportunities to find what is actually true for us and then act from that place?
Yeah, I think when those circumstances come up, of discomfort and those, unpleasant emotions of, feeling scared that our family won't have enough, that, I think it's that, all of the not enough food, not enough money, the shelter, all of the, the core needs, the things that humans need to survive. And I think probably every parent can relate to feeling stress and worry that what if we don't have enough? What if we can't support these little people? Um, uh, you know, so I guess when we're thinking about caring for our family, we have a lot of opportunities to analyze our beliefs, because then you can just, once those emotions settle down, come at it from a spiritual, logical perspective. Well, how do I view the universe? Is it abundant? I came to this realization this week because I had some worries about, us moving and what we're going to qualify for, and, how it's all going to play out. And then I just kind of stopped myself and said, wait a minute, I believe wholeheartedly. I know that the universe is reciprocal, right? What you put out is what you get back. So I've been studying, that's how I kind of woke up to spirituality with law of attraction. And I just know that for a fact. So I was thinking just more once, once when I wasn't in kind of like fear, scared mode, I was thinking about that law of the universe, what you put out is what you get back. And I said, but wait a minute, I know what I'm doing. I know that I'm doing my best to take care of myself and my daughter, and I know what I'm putting out, and I know that what I put out will come back to me. So it just was an aha moment for me that all I can do is what I can do. And coming from like a loving, caring, what can I do, and what I do choose to do those wholeheartedly, and that it's a guarantee, right, that that is going to come back to me. Um, so that was a kind of, I wonder what the belief was, because it's kind of nice to identify the belief and then let it go. Um, I guess the fear-based belief that I was kind of ready to let go of, maybe that like the universe is random, and even though I feel like I'm being the best person I can be, bad stuff could still happen to me.
Yeah, totally.
Or that I could become, even though I'm doing my best to put good out there, somehow I'm processing as we're talking.
Yeah.
Uh, I know the universe. I believe in the law of attraction. I know that to be true. But even it's just old habits of worry, and I guess just maybe it is worthiness stuff. That me and my family are worthy, regardless of how much money we're bringing in or where we stack up. And what, especially with running a business, geez, because the numbers always vary. You're not sure how much income you're going to bring in, and I guess to have that core sense of being worthy of a great life and a nice home, and plenty of food and all the things we need, even if my business is not where I think it should be, or my income isn't where I'm comfortable. I'm kind of like babbling a little bit, but I guess it comes down to a core level of worthiness for me, at least. I don't know if that
Mm.
resonates with you.
Yeah, you know what? It totally resonates. And I just feel like it's so relieving to hear real stories from people, because we just realize how it's almost like we're all connected and we're all wrestling with the same things, just in our own different ways how it plays out for us. But it's like getting down to very similar beliefs. So for me, worthiness comes up, oh my gosh, like in my personal life. Let's see, how can I bring up a situation? It's like, if I don't have the life that looks Instagram worthy or something like that, then I'm not good enough. It's as simple as that. It's like, when we get down to the root of things and how things are playing out, it's like, oh, I see that I actually have everything that I really need. And I don't even really mean that in a 3D way. Like, food is great, and my kids going to a school that has the right energy is great, but it's more than that. It's like life is actually bringing me circumstances that are bringing up these core beliefs in me so that I can look at them, and that's abundance. That's abundance. Sometimes not having the house that looks like Instagram worthy is your greatest gift, because it's bringing that shit up. That's what happens to me. Is at first the fear arises through that negative feeling, and then if you can have gratitude for that, if you can see it for what it is, and then transform it, you find bliss within, the circumstance. And then from there, it's like you don't do anything, or you don't move towards anything that you think that you want. It's this, that you trust how it's all unfolding. There's this element of like being okay. It's interesting. I was having a talk with my husband. The idea, what was coming through for both of us when we were having a conversation, was basically like, you know what, you can become a millionaire and not care about being a millionaire. Like, there's this whole world of self-development that says in order to be financially well off, you have to be super attached, and you have to really care and strive. And it's like this masculine energy of like, just sell, and yeah, like have your whys figured out. Why are you doing it? It has to be bigger than you, which is all good in a certain environment. It has its benefit. It's just that, so something subtly more true for me, and that is, hold on, I'm thrown off by this car. Just walk by. I wasn't sure if it was like going to drive or not drive. There's something subtly more true for me, and that is just listening to what I actually am drawn towards in the moment, like what makes me happy to do day by day, rather than like dangling a carrot in front of the proverbial carrot in front of my face and saying, this is going to be my motivation to do things. That's such an extrinsic motivation. At the end of the day, it's fake. You know what I mean? It's just like, there's a reason why you need extrinsic motivation, because you're not naturally motivated for it. It's actually not really speaking to you. Like, I'm okay with what speaks to me. My value is in living what is actually lighting me up, and then trusting that that's going to bring me everything that I need, not needing to create some world that looks the way my ego mind thinks a perfect life needs to look like.
Yay. Okay, I love that you said that. So when I first started working in spirituality, I was delivering law of attraction presentations, just locally. And one of them that I love was motivation versus inspiration, right? So I love what you're saying, because, motivation is the carrot. You're right. I just think of Tony Robbins, even though, no offense, but his style is and my dad taught me the same way. He taught me sales, I don't know, 20 years ago. And it was very like, write down your goals and put them up, and carrot, and go after that carrot. And if you make, oh my God, I was in sales. So like, make 100 calls a day, you're going to get 10 answers, and 3 of those people will buy. And you got to, get up every day and put a smile on your, I can talk forever about motivation, but what I started to realize, and I really felt the energy of inspiration, right? So inspiration, like, oh my God, like I love this style of parenting, but there's no way to chat. Angela, hey, let's start a group and let's just, this was built all on inspiration. This was built on, and I'm just using this group as an example because that's how we're together. So that's the difference. I was inspired to talk more about unschooling and self-directed education. I was inspired to gather people and just get these conversations out there. So I think that we're probably transforming as a whole society on what motivates us from, it reminds me of the Bashar formula, act on your passion with no insistence, stay positive, and, constantly process and review your beliefs. So I might have missed a step, but, something like that. And it's, to transform from, I'll be happy when the money's in my bank. I'll be happy when the car's in my driveway. I'll be happy when we finally buy a house, to transform from those goals that most of society think is success, is happiness, like you said, the Instagram life, and then to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to be happy in my apartment, I'm going to be happy in my camper, I'm just going to do what inspires me, and I'll just let the universe bring me my home and my cars and my vacations and my island, I love islands, so I always got to put that, my island paradise. It's pretty much opposite of, it's a very, it's almost the opposite, going from being motivated to being inspired. So I think it's natural, that a lot of these beliefs come up. A lot of these false beliefs come up as a chance to heal, so we can go back to our life, that we are acting on our passion, and to believe in the universe, believe in how it actually works, and let go of 20, 30, 40 years of conditioning, and being in society that is working backwards.
Totally. Oh my goodness. Yes. I'm switching location. I was walking outside, then I'm going to switch to my bedroom upstairs because little guy was getting tired of that. So that's why my mind is slightly distracted. I'm going to walk up the stairs right now. But oh my gosh. And I just, what really? You can hear him like, oh, you want to say hi? Hi. He's so stoked.
Oh, he's happy.
Yeah. Okay. So what really resonated for me when you were talking was the idea that we're evolving like this, like together. Like, and it does really seem like that. Like, it seems like the world of motivation and believing in all possibilities, that you can have all possibilities, and like taking it upon yourself. Sorry, I'm slightly out of breath too. But taking it upon yourself to like pursue that was actually really needed during a certain amount of time. Like maybe before then, in like the 30s or the 50s or whatever, it was way more of a limited perspective of like, oh, this life is for me. And come here, Beba. Come here. Hi. So like breaking out of that, maybe it just made sense at the time for like the motivational stuff. And I see that as very helpful. And like, it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier, like all stages are true and all stages are valid. It's like the motivational stage, if that feels true for you, live that out, because it's going to offer you a lot of wisdom. It's just that I think a lot of us are changing. A lot of us are transforming into this more like inspiration based, natural motivation based, and that has a lot to do with unschooling. Unschooling is based on those principles. Anyways, I'm gonna mute myself for a second to get him settled so that he's on the background. Sorry guys.
That's okay. Yeah, I do believe that, and especially in the unschooling world, self-directed world, I mean, it's based on the present moment, and it's based on trusting the present moment. When you throw all of the curriculum out the door and you say, hey, you know what, we're just going to go with the flow of life, see what comes up, let this child's natural desires be their road to balance and happiness and to success. It's a big um not a cell, it's very different from um society that is saying, it has this whole laundry list of things that make you successful. So transforming from very controlled, very regulated, this is the path. All of these steps need to be, very motivational, the path laid out to say, you know what, we're just going to scrap that path, and we're going to let the present moment, we're going to let life, we're going to let our inner drive, our inner passions be the path. It's very different. So I think it's natural for us to it sounds great, but I think it's a process, like you said, of embracing that and then living it. Once you kind of like, okay, this kind of makes sense, but then you say, you know what, we're actually going to live this. We're going to live the present moment. We're going to live inspiration. We're going to live on our passions. A lot comes out while embracing the lifestyle and embracing the mindset. So I think for me and you, just as regular parents on this path, and anyone listening who might be already on in using the style of education, or even just thinking about it, like, bravo. It seems like, oh, what are we going to do, private school, public school, unschooling? Let's pick this one. You maybe just pick it as like, oh, this sounds good, but then you're like, oh my god, what did I get myself into? This is like a complete transformation of everything I thought was true. And it's great and it's fun, but it's ups and downs, and it's not all pretty or pleasant. So I think it's nice to acknowledge that step of discomfort, and just the transform. I mean, you have, I believe, to execute this successfully and to really believe in it, you have to go through major inner healing, which is great, because then you're lighter and happier and more in tune with the universe. But that can be, it's a process, and it has, it's like just being on the spiritual path in general, and I know I do this even with my blog. I'll talk a lot about, hey, we're at Disney and we're doing all these great happy stuff, but most of my life I'm just doing regular ordinary mom stuff. I'm trying to show more of that, especially with the camper, just the regular stuff. And I do a lot of processing myself, and going back to situations. I journal a lot, and that's kind of my way. So I do have a lot, I do have a spiritual practice to keep myself coming back to the present moment, coming back to myself. But it has been, and I use all different strategies. Maybe it would be good to talk a little bit about those things that we do to bring ourselves back into alignment and to process. Um,
Yeah, I'm gonna step out of, my son is like having a ball slash having a hard time. He can't decide. It's like in between the
okay.
two. But he's hanging out with my other daughter right now. I'm gonna step out of the room. Yeah, it's such a great topic. So step one to like bringing ourselves back to center, I feel like I'm gonna go even prior to that, which is like how we get off center. First off, the energy that I prefer to come from, however, I do not always come from, but that I prefer to come from, is even getting off center. We're not actually trying to avoid falling into a downward spiral. We're not like trying to design a life or something that like makes it really easy so we never get triggered. It's more like we're embracing the triggers. It's like, oh, when I feel upset, that's my cue that there's opportunity here. This is not actually a bad thing. It's showing me a tendency, a belief, a world, a conglomerate of a cycle that's coming up. And this is my opportunity to view it. The negative emotion is just getting my attention. We're just so conditioned to avoid pain, myself included, that when pain arises, it's like, how can I make this go away? And that's just a misunderstanding of what the pain is actually for. So that being said, what is the pain for? How do we bring ourselves back to center? and that yeah, so I kind of already stated that, like, the pain is just letting us know. So this is how, like, just quickly, like, a pretty you know, copy and paste, like, process that I have used and posted on Facebook and stuff. But basically, you totally accept the emotion. Like, don't judge yourself for having a feeling. Don't add shame to it. That's just another layer you're gonna have to do the same process with the shame all over again. It's more like, oh, totally accept that you're having a feeling, which I'm having a feeling right now, if you can't tell, because my son was like, so that's like, okay, this is okay. There's nothing wrong with this. There's nothing's broken. This is all fine. Then as you settle and just let that feeling run its course through the body, it sort of naturally, if you're not in resistance to it, it will naturally bring up a belief attached to it. So then you start to have insight into what is the root cause of this feeling. What is this feeling trying to show me? And those are going to be like negative beliefs, perspectives on life that aren't really true for you, basically. At first, when you have a really strong emotion, though, that's not always the time to immediately jump to belief work. This is sometimes how we can bypass, spiritual bypass, because people on the spiritual journey, myself included, you're attuned, you're like aware, you're like, oh, I know this is time for me to do belief work. So immediately you just try to push the feeling down and cover it up with a new positive belief and think that that's actually the solution to the problem. But actually, in my maturity, I have learned that being with the emotion is first. That's actually how you get to the deep root of all the beliefs that are associated with that emotion. You let the beliefs come to you. You don't actually have to strive or try very hard to cover or to fix the problem. It's not like you have to go, oh, let me figure this out right now. It's like a deep relaxing and allowing the emotion to be, and then the beliefs come to you, and then you can see the thought patterns and just examine if they're really true for you. You know what's been really resonating for me is Byron Katie lately. She has I think it's 4 questions, and hopefully I get this right. I don't have the questions memorized, but I think they're really helpful just as like either for beginners, but I use that word lightly. It's just like as a blueprint. You can obviously use more questions than this. It's just like as a blueprint. So I think the first one is that really true for me? The belief that's coming up. Now, oftentimes a belief that's coming up, you say, is that really true for me? Because we're so attached to the belief, the answer that's genuine in the moment is like, yes, it actually is true for me. That's okay. That's okay for this process. Just allow it to be a yes. The second question is, can I absolutely know that that is true? Like, not for me, not for my experience, just like using logic. Can I absolutely know that that is true? Typically, the answer to that question, even if you have a strong emotion associated, a lot of beliefs associated, is like, actually, no. I can't know for sure that that belief is true. The third question is, how would I act if I couldn't believe that that was true? How would I act if and then, so from that perspective, what typically comes is like, it's almost like the mind is so conditioned that working directly on a belief sometimes is too challenging. So what you actually have to do is imagine yourself in a situation where that belief just isn't true for you. And you start to enact a scenario that's like, oh, I would actually, if that wasn't true for me, I would just not be fearful right now. I would be loving of my mom, who I actually thought was my worst enemy. I would just like love her as she is. And it's like when the mind is able to put yourself in a scenario like that, beliefs that are actually more true for you come naturally. And then you're like, oh, I see. Let's see. The story might be, my mom should be acting differently than she is. And she needs to act differently than she is for me to be happy. Is that true for you? Yes, it's true for me. Can you absolutely know that is true? It's like, okay, I can't absolutely know it's true. How would I act differently if I couldn't believe it was true? I would just love her as she is. And I would see that she's just playing out her story. Actually, she's just coming from her conditioning and she's just playing out what's true for her. And then it's like, wait a minute. I now see how I don't need my mom to be any different than she is for me to be happy. But we had to work around it almost. Anyways, there you have it. There's like a little summed up belief work practice.
Yay, I love it. Thank you. Yeah, so why don't we post it? Like if you can get those actual questions, I think it's good that we can give people some meat, some processes. And it sounds very similar to Bashar's line of questioning to bring up the false beliefs. It's very similar. So why don't we like once we post this video, we can put both of those, self-reflection questions. And I think what's really important to me, I was actually typing a post and then like it just went away until, I don't know, it just didn't get posted. So I was like, okay, but I think what's super, super important also, and I know you and I talk about this a lot, but in the self-reflection processes, if at some point you're getting really scared or fearful or hopeful, if something really strong and uncomfortable is coming up, I really highly suggest getting a professional to help you, because I think self-reflection is great, but I think sometimes when we really dig and get to the core, you could have like a really serious trauma that just needs more. It just may need some professional help. It might just need more than just a self-reflection tool. So I just want to emphasize that, because I personally do a lot of self-reflection. But it took me a long time to get to the point that I could do it. A lot of times I would kind of try, but I would hit on something really uncomfortable, and I didn't know how to bring myself back into alignment, and I could end up in I could end up in depression, and I could end up in a downward spiral that I couldn't get myself out of for days or weeks. So I just want to put it out there that these self-reflection, self-healing tools that we're suggesting, I think that they can go really far. But at the same time, if something seriously uncomfortable is coming up, it should just be a red flag to get some help, whether it's Reiki or a therapist. So, sometimes we just can't do it alone. Sometimes we need professional help, like, Angela is a coach, and, there's so many coaches that can help if needed. So I just want to put it out there that, I think we should definitely list out the self-reflection tools, but just with that like big asterisk, like, please, 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 if you're feeling super uncomfortable, and reach out for help, for sure, because there is a light at the end of the tunnel. When you do expose these core negative beliefs, what Bashar says and what I find is a lot of them are nonsensical. I was doing some self-process work last week, and so something had happened. I felt uncomfortable. And then, when my daughter and I did some screen time, I started journaling. I started asking myself the questions that I'll post. What is this feeling? What am I feeling? If I did allow myself to be my true self, what am I afraid of? And I got to this fear that if I put myself out there, I'm going to get us all killed. And I was like, what? Like, it's not something that I consciously think about, getting killed or whatever, but it just popped out. And I was like, oh my God, that's weird. I didn't even know that was under there. And I don't really even know where it came from. Maybe like, well, I can understand where it came from, that like a little bit, but anyways, so it was such a relief. It immediately, when I typed it out, I was like, what? It just didn't, like exactly what Bashar says, like when you actually get to a root core belief, it'll seem nonsensical. And I was like, oh my God. It was almost like I was holding a little child. The child was myself, and somehow just a fear that if I really put myself out there as alternative education, alternative lifestyle, if I people are going to get mad and they'll kill us all. And I was like, holy weirdness. Like, it was wow. But at the same time, I didn't, shame myself, but I, kind of embraced it. And it was such a relief to just make that conscious and let it go. Like, I don't actually, from a logical, mature adult point of view, I don't think I'm going to get anyone killed. Like, who kills alternative education people? Like, it seemed so irrational. So that was just an example that I had last week. Um, that was a really great self-healing tool. And, I do notice when I do my self-healing and I do get to stuff, I always just try to be so gentle with myself and, not judge myself, or just to follow it up with a lot of like TLC and gentleness. And I think it's a big deal to self to self reflect, and to, you're kind of digging and releasing. And I think it should be done with, very, very gentle, loving, compassionate, and also a curious energy I think can help. Like, oh, I'm curious about this, really kind of take some of the pressure off. And it's just more of like oh, let me do some self-investigation. Um,
It froze for me again.
um,
Oh, you're
are you
back.
there?
Back. You're
Yay.
good. Yeah. So it froze right at the tail end, but I think judging by your energy, I think that was your closing thought, and that maybe was the thought stream complete? Did you finish?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just sharing a real life experience myself of, the self-reflection process, and it kind of coming full circle. And I think the joy and the bliss and the blessing, and why I'm so committed to like the spiritual path, is that it just feels so good, you know once I just feel, lighter. And I feel it's almost like when I have these false beliefs that are like chiming in, it's almost, even though it's almost like they're in my path. Once I'm able to reflect, and hear what's underneath, and then release them, I just feel so much lighter and more clear and more balanced and more present. And that is like awesome. That feeling of being my true self, being focused and calm. And then actually, now that I think about it, then like a couple days later is when I just had that aha moment, that like, wait a minute, I know how the universe works. I know the energy I'm putting out. Of course that's going to come back to me. I don't have to worry about money or us not having a home, or that, because I know what I'm putting out. So it's beautiful, full circle, you know? So that's kind of my full circle experience last week.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Like, so much of what you said is just hitting on resonant feelings. Um, Especially the like shock value or the ridiculousness of some of these thoughts. I actually have a feeling that we have thoughts run through our consciousness like all the time that we're just not even aware of. They're so fast that we can see, like, from the state that we're at, we can see, you know, some of the beliefs, and those are the ones that are relevant for us to work through at the time. And as we get more skilled at it, when you start getting down to, like, he's pulling my hair right now, I don't know if you can tell, he's like breastfeeding and pulling my hair. But as we, get more adept at it, then we start to become aware of these like crazy thoughts, like I'm gonna die if I do this, or there's even like murderous ones where it's like you don't like something and it's like, oh well, I'm just gonna kill that guy or something. Like, there's these ridiculous thoughts, and I actually think it's not something that we need to be afraid of or ashamed of. It's something that it shows actually like our adeptness, that the fact that, like, oh, we're getting to like the root. I actually think we're like a shared consciousness or something, and we're working through the human these conditioned human ways of viewing things. Anyways, that's just my takeaway from that.
Awesome. Um, yeah, well, there's so much more. Obviously, we can talk for hours. Does next Tuesday still work for you, Angela?
Yeah, Tuesday is still good for now. I'll
Okay.
keep you posted. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, but it looks like we are towards the end of this call. And honestly, like my energy got a little divided because this guy's having a harder time. So yeah, I'm feeling good about saying sayonara, and thank you for everyone joining today. And yeah, I thought the conversation was pretty fruitful and felt good. So thank you for that.
Yay, yeah. I mean, we got to show up our true selves, and just this is about life, for sure. So I don't know, Cynthia, did you have any like closing remarks? I know that you've been here, so thank you. Angela and I were kind of into it. Did you have anything you wanted to add or any announcements?
I guess I'll throw maybe an announcement on the Facebook group. Just put something about my ICBL group, and then I am starting to actively trying to collect youth ages 13 to 19 who are home education self-directed youth in the area. So it's a geographically based, but I'm happy to talk to anyone anywhere, because this initiative that I'm trying to start, of course, the idea it's eventually just be replicated, but but that's about it in terms of announcements. But it was very interesting to listen to you and Angela talk about the spiritual stuff. So
Yay, awesome. Well, thank you for joining. You know what else? I just wanted to ask one other question, because sometimes I wonder when I'm posting it, like if I should tag everyone, like Andrea is with Cynthia Turner, and like, are you comfortable, Cynthia, if we tag you
Yeah.
on the post?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I just wanted to check. I just wasn't sure on that. Awesome. Yeah, I don't have any announcements except for next Tuesday. More chatting, and thank you, and happy new moon, happy new cycle. So when we started the call, we were still on the last cycle, so now it has turned. So I hope everyone can relax and party and just enjoy the weekend, do some celebrating. Mid-spring and a new season, new cycle, new ideas, new passions, all that good stuff.
And I also want to acknowledge, I mean, while we're talking about cycles and everything, that Eid is now, we're on the cusp of Eid, is the end of Ramadan. So for anyone listening who celebrates that, I just wanted to, put a shout out for that, and that they have a joyous celebration. So.
Yay.
Thanks. Yeah. All right. Well, that was great. Thank you. I'll see you shortly. See you on Tuesday.
Yeah, just a couple days. All right. Have
Yeah.
a good weekend, everyone.
All right. Bye.
Bye.